фундаментальные права и свободы людей. Для этого объединение активно распространяет знания о способах защиты гражданских и индивидуальных прав, развивает сотрудничество с международными и региональными организациями, зарубежными омбудсменами и ассоциациями омбудсменов. Первое заседание Альянса состоялось 9 ноября 2018 года. Тогда был подписан протокол о статусе наблюдателя при Альянсе омбудсменов. Этот документ позволил увеличить количество участников организации. Такой шаг вызвал интерес у омбудсменов Евразии. К объединению присоединился уполномоченный по правам человека в Монголии. Через год в состав Альянса вошли омбудсмены Сербии и Таджикистана, омбудсмены и сотрудники их аппаратов из Албании, Болгарии, Боснии и Герцеговины, Индонезии, Казахстана, Камбоджи, Черногории, а также представители Евразийской экономической комиссии, Совета Европы и Европейского института омбудсменов стали участниками второго заседания Альянса. Тот факт, что второе заседание стало гораздо более представительным, подтверждает интерес к правозащитному интеграционному процессу на Евразийском континенте не только постоянных участников объединения, но и омбудсменов других государств. В рамках плана работы в 2020 году были проведены совместные приемы граждан, посещение пенитенциарных учреждений на территории стран-участниц, обмен опытом по работе национального превентивного механизма, совместные посещения центров содержания иностранных граждан, совместные публикации в печати. Для решения организационных вопросов был образован секретариат Альянса, в который вошли сотрудники аппарата уполномоченного по правам человека в Российской Федерации. Пандемия коронавируса частично перевела работу Альянса в формат онлайн. На селекторных совещаниях омбудсмены-участники ЕАО обсуждали вопросы восстановления прав мигрантов, детей, пожилых людей, туристов, застигнутых вирусом в другой стране. 27 марта 2020 года к уполномоченному поступило обращение от защитника прав человека Республики Армения Армана Татаяна с просьбой оказать содействие в воссоединении армянской семьи, которая вследствие карантинных мероприятий оказалась в трудной жизненной ситуации. Родителям пришлось вылететь в Ереван, а их несовершеннолетние дети остались в Уфе. Благодаря слаженному взаимодействию омбудсменов России и Армении, уполномоченного по правам человека в Республике Башкортостан, органов государственной власти обоих государств, 5 апреля двое детей вылетели из Уфы в Москву, а 6 апреля благополучно добрались до Еревана к своим родителям. В режиме видеоконференции 29 апреля 2020 года прошло заседание Альянса, посвященное 75-летию Победы в Великой Отечественной войне и окончанию Второй мировой войны. Во второй половине 2020 года в рамках совместной деятельности по правовому просвещению омбудсмены провели общенациональные уроки для школьников и студентов своих стран, посвященных праву на историческую память. В 2020 году продолжилось расширение Альянса. В ходе четвертого заседания в ноябре 2020 года к нему присоединился уполномоченный по правам человека в Республике Казахстан. Тогда основной темой обсуждения стала защита прав мигрантов. Опираясь на опыт работы в пандемию, омбудсмены обозначили главные проблемы защиты прав мигрантов и составили рекомендации правительствам своих стран. Пятое заседание прошло 24 июня 2021 года в Доме прав человека, а также онлайн. Оно было посвящено защите прав инвалидов. Участники Альянса обсудили вопрос создания Института независимой медико-социальной экспертизы. Решение этой задачи требует коллективных усилий. Тематика заседания приобрела особую актуальность в свете 15-летия Конвенции ООН о правах инвалидов, которая дала импульс к переосмыслению отношения общества к ним. Впереди у Альянса много работы. В качестве перспектив деятельности объединения на 2021 год определены совместные личные приемы и посещение центров временного содержания иностранных граждан, анализ законодательства, используемого при рассмотрении жалоб, разработка методики мониторинга обеспечения прав различных категорий населения и многое другое.
Dear colleagues, members of the Eurasian Ombudsmen Alliance, dear colleagues, I welcome you here at the 6th meeting of the Eurasian Ombudsmen Alliance. We are almost all here. Today at our meeting, we have the High Commissioner for Human Rights of Armenia, Arman Tatayan. We have High Commissioner for Human Rights of Kyrgyzstan, Gulnara Zhamgurtieva. We have the Commissioner of the National Commission of Human Rights of Mongolia, Sunjit Dugar. We have High Commissioner for Human Rights for Tajikistan, Umed Babazadeh, and we have several observers present today, and that's Chairman of the National Institute for Human Rights of the Kingdom of Bahrain, Ali Ahmed Al-Darazi, and head of the National Human Rights Center of Uzbekistan, Akmal Saidov, and a Commissioner for Human Rights of the Supreme Assembly of Uzbekistan, Feruza Ashmatova. We will also have with us today head of the Federation Council Committee on Social Policy in Svetenka, and Olga Timofeeva, representing Commission for Social and Religious Affairs, and Andrei Platonov, Deputy Head of the Federal Agency for Youth Affairs, and Alexander Sapronov, Chairman of the Chamber of Young Legislators under the Federation Council. Welcome, everyone. And several other people joined our meeting today. Our fellow regional commissioners for human rights, representing Russia's federal subjects. 75 people to be exact. And another person with us today is head of the Educational Center of the Kotafen University, Igor Dudko. Dear members of the Alliance, you have all received our agenda in advance, and do you have maybe any additions? Sorry, I can't see anyone wanting to add anything, so thus our agenda is approved. And before we start, I would like to give the floor to Russian officials, namely Inna Svetenka, head of the Federation Council Committee on Social Policy. Please.
I would like to greet everyone, all the participants of the 4th meeting of the Eurasian Ombudsman Alliance. First of all, dear Ms. Moskalkova, hello, and hello to all the colleagues. I would like to mention today that it is very important. The conversation that will be having today is very important at this meeting of the Eurasian Ombudsman Alliance. Our conversation is about protecting the rights of young people. First of all, it is very important to have special youth policies and to make sure that their rights are protected, really protected, in order to react to their needs and we have to understand how the young people, what role they play in our future. They are the carriers of the new spirit, and they will be living in the new era, and how we can help them to develop. It is important to have, it is impossible to have a dialogue about protecting human rights or the rights of young people. I'm sorry. Can you hear me? Okay. And of course, I would like to say that Russia has new legislation, and last year we made amendments to the constitution, and these are, some of them are about youth policies. And what's more important is that we have a new law on youth policies in addition to the Russian constitution. And Russia, in Russia, we consider all people under 35 young people, youth. And so these youth policies, they provide favorable conditions for different youth projects, and also provide social guarantees, social security for young people. In the Federation Council, we have a special chamber for young legislators, and it is a very efficient agency. Young people, along with senators, are passing laws, making laws. Of course, they don't have the powers necessary to pass those laws, but they are working on preparing them. And I think that the issues that they raise when they discuss the youth agenda and the protection of the rights of young people, and protection of personal information, all these issues are very important. And so I would like to wish everyone, every commissioner present here, every human rights ombudsman, I wish you to have a productive conversation, and so that we can move forward in reaching our common goals. And Mrs. Moskalkova, thank you for giving us this opportunity to participate in the meeting of the Eurasian Ombudsman Alliance. And I would like to thank you for raising such important issues. And they are important not just in Russia, but in the whole of Eurasia. Thank you very much, my dear colleague, Ms. Svitenka, for greeting the participants of today's forum. I hope that we will continue to work fruitfully together in promoting social rights and guarantees of all citizens, especially our young people. We just had hold a major event in St. Petersburg, International Women's Forum, where important issues were raised, and we talked about young women and girls, and about how we can protect their family rights, their labor rights, and their right to have a future in their societies and in politics. And today we'll continue to discuss these subjects here at this platform. Dear colleagues, now I would like to welcome the head of the Committee of the State Duma on Civil Society, Olga Timofeyeva. Ms. Timofeyeva, okay, all right. Just a second, let me figure out some technical issues. Ms. Moskalkova, can you see me? Yes, we can see you and we can hear you very well. Dear colleagues, all human rights activists, I would like to greet you all from all the MPs and the Speaker of the State Duma, Vyacheslav Volodin. We have a very difficult day at the State Duma today, but we think that youth policies are also important. Since we are discussing the state budget today, we think that the state policies are also important. I know that the Eurasian Ombudsman Alliance unites many different countries, Serbia and Armenia and others, and we have representatives of 9 countries here and also representatives of our different regions of Russia. We are working on creating efficient laws, and you are telling us how we can fine-tune them to make sure that they help the young people. The pandemic underscored and highlighted a lot of problems with human rights. And of course, that is also affecting young people. And in this situation, we need to share our experiences and fight for the rights of people and react to different threats. And I would like to thank you first and foremost, Ms. Moskalkova, because it was your initiative to create this alliance, and that shows that it is necessary to have this agency, to have this organization, and I hope that it will continue to grow. We have a lot of young people, and I mean, the new State Duma just started working, and we have the Youth Policies Committee in this new State Duma. So it is we have a special committee. A 20-year-old volunteer heads up this committee, and 2 years ago, he came up with a proposal to all the MPs to start the We Are Together campaign again, because the pandemic is not slowing down and we need to relaunch this campaign. And when we hear this from young people, we of course react to these calls. And we are looking at the budget right now. The finance minister is explaining it to us right now, and we will need to make sure that all citizens, all our voters are represented in this budget. We need to make sure that all social obligations are considered. Do we have enough money to cover medical expenses for all the people in the country? Because of course these are the most important issues that we're considering today. A year ago, we passed the youth law, youth policies law, and we looked at all regional laws and we united them. But of course, there is still a lot of areas that we need to cover, because there are so many challenges that we're looking at right now. Because our young people, they're not just the future, they're the present. They live in the world of online technology. They're living in a situation where some forces are trying to revise and rewrite history, and there are a lot of risks and threats that they're facing. So going back to young people, the committee that is working with you personally and with your agency, there are a lot of young people in that committee that head volunteer organizations, and that is really good, because they come to us with their proposals, their views and perspectives. There is a youth parliament that also is playing an important role, and of course we are going to work with all of them, because they have their own unique perspective. Again, let me say it again. Some people say that young people are the future. No, they are the present, and we have to take them into account when we pass new legislation. This is a force to reckon with, and we need to help them. I looked at your decisions, and I see that the most important thing that you emphasize is that we would have more bonuses for young people, like some more, like with mortgage and employment and things like that. When we were working on the legislation on pensions and people who are close to the retirement age, we looked at the statistics and realized how difficult it was for find employment for young people. Turns out it is actually harder for young people to find jobs than for people who are near their retirement age. And some were just amazed by these numbers. But these are the things that we should consider. Since we are since I'm representing the legislators here, we'd like to hear your proposals and your suggestions, so that we can fine tune the laws that we have, because you are the ones who see the problems in the field. So maybe we can take international experience into consideration and amend the law to make sure that everyone is protected. I understand that you will have to work on some difficult things. Moscow is going into partial lockdown today. My region, Stavropolya, we are also imposing certain limitations, and of course, it's longer holidays that we have to all have to do because of the pandemic. We are ready to work together. So thank you again. Thank you, Ms. Timofeeva, for your warm wishes. And I would like to congratulate you and all the MPs on your election to the new State Duma. Thank you for participating in the federal law about human rights commissioners in Russia's regions. And now you're here with us talking about amendments to the federal law about human rights commissioners in the Russian Federation. We need to make sure that our tools are efficient and effective in protecting human rights and the rights of young people. And we're moving on to our main agenda. We're talking about the human rights mechanisms to protect the rights of young people and the role of human rights commissioners. We have two main issues on our agenda. The first one, I just mentioned it. And the second one, we are going to present the new website of the Eurasian Ombudsmen Alliance. Dear colleagues, let me start.
Just now, Ms. Timofeeva said such nice words about our alliance, the fact that it's developing and we have new members. And Russia wasn't the only one who came up with this initiative. It was the Commissioner for Human Rights in Armenia. We have actively been cooperating bilaterally, and thank you for this honor to be the chairperson of this meeting and to be the chairperson for this year. So, as the chairperson, I would like to start. And please remember that every speaker has 10 minutes. Dear colleagues, protecting the rights of young people is one of the fundamental issues these days. And of course, the interests of young people is on the UN development goals. And the main are youth employment, developing of youth entrepreneurship, acquisition of skills and education, and fighting poverty. And in the UN strategy for 2030, these issues have been elaborated on, and they were drafted by UN members, and they are, of course, important for us. And I'd like to remind you that in October 2021, Human Rights Council adopted a resolution on human rights implications of the COVID-19 pandemic on young people. We, of course, support this resolution, and the goals mentioned there are valid for us as well. As for the youth policy in Russia, well, the circumstances brought it into the limelight. So we have about 20% of our population are young people. So it's 1 in 3 working people. And in Russia, we consider young people to be people aged from 14 to 35. And I also need to mention the amendments to the Constitution of the Russian Federation that strengthened our protection mechanisms when it comes to the right of young people. And we recognize the duty of the government to recognize, respect, and protect the rights of young people. This is our principle. And in December of 2020, we adopted federal law on the youth policy in the Russian Federation. And it lists our priorities and the powers of different government agencies in this area. The Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights of the Russian Federation also took part in drafting this law, and we made a number of proposals, most of which have been taken into consideration. And now we are monitoring how this law is being implemented, especially when it comes to orphan children and children without parental custody. And the law also covers a number of social issues and support of young people getting education and so on. We have been working on providing social benefits to support our young people. My colleagues talked about that just now. And today, as we know, the Russian president introduced monthly and ad hoc benefits for people with families because of the pandemic. And for orphan children and abandoned children, there are special rules if they want to enter, to be admitted to the university. And we've made some revolutionary steps. We have a program that's called the Pushkin Card. Young people aged 14 to 22 can attend cultural events at the expense of the federal budget. We have 15 national projects in Russia. These are strategic documents aimed at improving key areas of life. And for every national project, we've been working on measures that guarantee the rights of young people. The Russian Ministry of Labor has develop a draft program for promoting youth employment until 2030. All of us, me as the Commissioner for Human Rights and regional ombudsmen, will be taking part in improving this program and fine-tuning it. In order to implement it, we will need to define the potential careers for young people to ensure they have a good future, because this is very important for young people. They're just starting their adult lives, and they have no advantages that older people have on the labor market. Despite all the measures that we've taken, many outstanding issues remain. And of course, I can see that since I get applications as the Human Rights Commissioner. We've been processing them, and regional commissioners for human rights also get many applications. This year, we've already had over 600 applications. Here on the slide, you have the numbers that are slightly outdated. And what people are asking for is limited to 4 areas: education, labor, healthcare, and housing. These are the main 4. And also, I would like to mention family rights as a topic. Young people are very concerned about that. And you can see that we've been getting more and more applications. Considering that I can only take up 10 minutes, I would just like to tell you a few more things. So first of all, we have the problem of young people not being able to find a job after they graduate. And this is an issue that is relevant for many people, or for many members of the Eurasian Ombudsmen Alliance. And we need to strengthen guarantees for young professionals, for those who are looking for a job. And we also need to have educational organizations assist their graduates or future graduates in terms of future job search. And we know that some colleges and universities have partnership programs, but unfortunately, these are limited. And young generation is very keen on social media, on IT, and online there are many opportunities for self-expression and so on. Still, this presents a new challenge for us, and it's a threat to privacy for everyone, including young people. So it's harder to keep family secrets and easier to involve young people in destructive activities. So we need to take steps in this regard. And so we use the legal framework available to us, which is the federal constitutional law on the High Commissioner for Human Rights in the Russian Federation. And next month, all human rights commissioners of the Russian Federation will have a meeting to discuss on whether this law is effective. One of the rights that we have in accordance with that law is the right to demand that illegal or unfair decisions of government agencies are cancelled. The right to file appeals, and put forward initiatives to amend the current legislation. Last year, at the height of the pandemic, we started getting complaints from foreign students because they couldn't come back to Russia to resume their studies. And we've discussed this issue, of course, as a systemic one, and the particular cases as well. We asked the government to lift the restrictions on entry of foreign students, and we were successful. I'm very happy to report that this issue is no longer as terrible as it used to be. And of course, every state has its own tools and has its own best practices. And today we can share our best practices. We have this opportunity. And we've been working closely with experts of different levels. Okay, are we okay? No technical difficulties? Yes. In 2021, so this year, we created the Youth Public Council that will allow us to involve young people in human rights activity and strengthen our dialogue on the protection of human rights and freedoms. Its main goal is to raise awareness. We believe that this is crucial for young people to understand the laws. And we've started over 40 different initiatives, and we have a joint master's program with the UN on the international protection of human rights. I'd like to thank the members of our alliance who also held a workshop, who decided to hold a workshop on human rights in December. And we would like to have a special section on the rights of young people in the report. And let me give you a couple of proposals about what we should do. So we should align the legislation of our countries when it comes to protecting young people's rights, including creating special councils, create an international job search database for young people. Include young legal experts of the Eurasian Ombudsmen Alliance into the Youth Educational Forum. Join our efforts to create a textbook and a curriculum on human rights for colleges and universities. I would also like to urge you to pay special attention to expand social and economic measures to support young people, especially when it comes to mortgages, student loans, grants for talented youth, and government grants for studying at universities. All of this means that we have to work on specific steps to achieve these goals. And my colleagues from Rosmolodozh and the Chamber of Young People under the Federation Council will add some things to what I just said. I'd like to give the floor to Mr. Platonov, Deputy Head of the Federal Agency for Youth Affairs. Please, Mr. Platonov.
Hello, dear colleagues from our agency. I'm speaking on behalf of our agency, and I'd like to thank you for letting me join this summit. This is a great honor to me, and especially since we're talking about youth and youth policies in our countries. That is also very responsible, big responsibility. Youth issues are really important in Russia. For a long time in Russia, we haven't had any such thing as youth and youth policies or young family in our legislation. We only introduced those terms in 2014. And when we talked about the basics of the youth policies in Russia, but the joint approach to youth policies and protected youth rights at the regional level, it has not been systematic, but we have done certain projects, and especially in some regions where the authorities paid a lot of attention to youth policies, and they all even had their own legislation, and that became the model and the testing ground for federal laws as we developed them. In 2020, as Ms. Moskalkova mentioned, and Ms. Svitenka also mentioned, that it was an important year for youth policies at the federal level, because we passed important laws in this respect. So in the Constitution, where we now mention youth policies along with education, culture, and physical activities. We also now have a federal law governing youth policies, and this law is binding in the area of working with youth, and it is basically the foundation for all activities in this area, and it also a launching ground for our future work in Russia's regions. And we're planning to work to attract young people so that they would participate in this work. And we have over 20,000 cities in Russia and towns in Russia. And one of the goals that we pursue is to develop youth policies and working with young people in every municipality, so that local workers would understand the important trends in youth rights protection and would do actual work in that respect. That is our goal, and we're hoping that you will support us as people who can share international experience. And I am happy to address my colleagues, human rights commissioners from Russia's regions. We also expect that you would support us. And the new law that we passed that defines youth policies includes protecting youth rights and making sure that young people participate in all areas of our society. And youth policies guarantee labor and employment for young people and professional development of young specialists, young professionals. And young professional, which is now an actual term in the legislation, and this area of youth policies will help us develop mechanisms that will allow us to support employment of young people. We're creating conditions for young people so that they can realize their potential and implement their business ideas of their social initiatives. And we have the Federal Youth Agency that oversees that work. I would also like to mention that in 2018, the president ordered to institute a platform, Russia, country of opportunities, and there are over 20 projects, and over 8 million people are participating in this platform. Also, I would like to talk about the following. In order to make sure that young people participate in civil society activities. We hold a youth forum every year, and Ms. Moskalkova, in her presentation, voiced this proposal to hold this special track, human rights track, in the framework of this forum. And we are going to consider that and see where exactly that could be implemented. Our forums also help include young people in the political and social life in our country. So we basically, it's the assembly platform where we share our experience and develop roadmaps for the future. And also some of the platforms help their young participants to find employment. Some of the winners get job offers from experts and coaches who come to these forums, and they also give their expert opinion and advice. Also, another support program that we have, and it's a grant program that we hold every year. It's over 2 billion rubles, and most of this money goes to universities, and some assets are allocated for support of individuals, and young people can realize their projects and their initiatives. And our agency basically helps and supports startups and some projects that develop on their own after we give them some support initially. So in Russia, we create all kinds of opportunities for young people so they can realize themselves. And the goal of our policies is to make sure that every young people has an opportunity to realize their potential, to have a competitive edge in the new environment by getting training. And I would also like to mention that the Russian legislation that regulates youth policies, and I think that it will continue to improve. And the important factor here is the youth committee that we now have in the State Duma, which was already mentioned earlier by my colleague. And through our cooperation with the High Commissioner on Human Rights and the organization, the whole agency, and also the Federation Council and youth agencies like the new legislators and other similar organizations. So this cooperation will help us improve and fine-tune the legislation that we have right now. We have a great team consisting of young people who are ready to change the context, the environment that they're living in, to find and pinpoint different issues and problems, and they actually know how to deal with those issues. So we have a new generation of professionals who can look at the experience that's been accumulated and keep moving forward, improving the legislation that we have, as well as practical support. Provide practical support to young people. Thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer them. In the future, of course, we're open to cooperation. Russian Youth Agency also has an international branch, and we communicate with your countries in different formats. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Platonov. Thank you for your comments. You've said some interesting things, and I'd also like to thank you for all the initiatives that Rosmolodezh came up with. For a number of years, with your support, we've organized events on the Territorial Muslim Forum. So it gives the opportunity for experts and successful people to meet with young people, to hear them out, to hear what's important to them. And I'd like to ask you to maybe try to involve the Eurasian Ombudsman Alliance member countries so that their representatives could take part in this work.
I would also like to invite everyone to our major international forum, Eurasia Global, which we hold annually in near Orenburg. So if you are interested, we'll include you in the program of the forum, and we can figure out all the logistics of your participation. So thank you very much. Thank you very much. That is a very good invitation. So I'm sure that the members of the Eurasian Ombudsman Alliance will accept your invitation gladly, and that will help us consolidate our work in the human rights issues. And now, representing the young legislators, Alexander Sopronov. Hello, Ms. Moskalkova and all the colleagues. I would like to greet you all from our Young Legislators Chamber. It is a great honor to me to address such a great assembly. Of course, the most valuable thing for me is to be able to share what we've achieved and our goals for the future here. Protecting youth rights is very important, wouldn't you agree? Because youth, of course, is the future of any country, of any nation. And we need to make sure that young people are able to realize their potential in different areas. And of course, we need to make sure that there is no discrimination in social, economic, cultural, or religious rights. Young people, since they're young and they don't have enough experience, often they experience difficulties realizing their rights. For example, political rights. Young people are not represented in government agencies, not nearly enough. That's not nearly enough. Most MPs are older than 35, but this youth parliamentarism is one of the most effective ways to realize youth rights in any nation. Youth parliaments give young people an opportunity to participate in political processes at the national and regional levels. And of course, young people should be able to partner with the government in realizing youth policies and implementing youth policies. Our Young Legislations Chamber, which was established in 2012 and by Valentina Matvienko, is a unique platform where we can fight for the rights of young people in regions of the Russian Federation. And I think it is also important to hear at the federal level what young people think about our federal legislation. Young people are a very important part of the labor market, and young professionals should be the most sought for, but somehow this is not the case. A lot of young people experience problems finding employment after they graduate from universities. Young people are the strongest category, but somehow they are the most vulnerable. Let me give you an example from my personal life. When I graduated from the university, out of the 30 graduates, only 2 were able to find jobs using the skills that they got when they studied. So we need to create a whole complex of measures to help young people find employment after they graduate. We need to have social policies that would help graduates, and maybe we should think about flexible hours for full-time students. And not having enough experience should not be a barrier for young people to find jobs. So our proposal is to expand the idea of people who are experiencing difficulties finding employment. So this has been expanded to include more young people. Now the age limit for such citizens is 25 years old. So the youth employment problem has to be dealt with at different levels, and we need to look we should look at age and also the the area of employment. So we have to work with every group separately and have special measures for every group. That will make our work more effective. We need to talk about young scientists and have special programs for them. We need to make sure that there would be more opportunities for young people in our research and science. And we've talked about this before. We need to develop youth entrepreneurship and create conditions where young entrepreneurs can thrive. Because that is an important factor in the growth of our economy. A lot of entrepreneurs today who are trying and starting young in the area of finance, for example, or who become entrepreneurs. And that is great that people start when they're young and they start their careers. So we need to look at our young people from a different point of view. We should also talk about young families who find themselves in difficult circumstances. There are also other aspects of our work that call for specific mechanisms. I would like to talk more about young people who find themselves in difficult circumstances. We need to protect their interests as well. And I would like to share what we've learned. In every region of our country, there is a program that regulates temporary employment for young people during school breaks. And usually these programs are tailored towards underage kids, mostly orphans and handicapped children. Teenagers can work 3-4 hours a day, and they can do like some groundskeeping or something. And they usually get 5,000 or 6,000 rubles a month. But as soon as these young people start work, they lose all their benefits from the state. And what they can actually make working is actually less than what they get in government programs. So we need to remove that discrepancy, and we need to stimulate them to work without losing their government support. So along with the colleagues, we came up with a legislative initiative, and in this initiative we asked to stipulate that these teenagers keep their government support while they find employment. So of course the well-being and protection of the rights of the young people are key factors for the sustainable development of the world. And we are prepared and ready for any dialogue, and we hope that you will support us in this work. Thank you very much, and we wish you to have a productive day.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sabronov. We also hope to cooperate with you and work with you. And dear participants, we've now presented the Russian best practices in the area. So I would like to ask other members of the alliance to talk about their situation and the guarantees that they provide. And I would like to ask Commissioner for Human Rights in Tajikistan, Umed Babazadeh, to speak, please. Yes, we can hear you very well. Good afternoon, dear colleagues, participants of the 6th meeting of the Eurasian Ombudsman Alliance. Ladies and gentlemen, first I would like to thank the organizers, particularly Ms. Moskalkova, for holding this event. I think it's very important to have meetings that discuss youth rights in Eurasia. And of course, protecting youth rights is important for developing of every country in the world. And it's important for social developments to strengthen democracy. And every democracy knows that it's crucial that young people become part of the life of the country. And young people sometimes don't know what rights they have. And that means that they don't really participate in the agenda that's related to them. And we believe that young people should fulfill their potential, should have that opportunity. And there are many international documents that highlight how important it is to raise awareness among young people when it comes to their rights and laws in general. If they are well informed in that regard, they're going to be successful in other areas as well. And I would also like to say that because of the state of affairs with people, the government suffers as well, because we see unemployment and criminality on the rise. So protecting and defending youth rights is something that we've been working on from the very first days of our independence. And we pay particular attention to that area. We create the right environment for young people to get education, to start their research, and get employment. Our president met with young people on Youth Day and emphasized that developing this area has been a priority for Tajikistan since the very creation of the state. And the majority of our population is young, and we believe that it's very important for them to get education and to have a good life. 70% of the population of Tajikistan is under 35. So we need to involve them into the political and legal life, and we have several laws adopted for that purpose: the youth law, the national program of development for 2019-2024, and several presidential orders on creating the Youth Council under the president of Tajikistan. We introduced several awards, especially for young people, and thanks to the aforementioned documents, we've held several nationwide events and forums, all very educational in their nature. And considering the participation of young people in the political life of Tajikistan, 2019 was announced as the Youth Year in Tajikistan. We hope to expand the role that they play in economy, a political landscape, and so on. This is our priority. To protect their rights and interests, as well as raising their level of education. We hold roundtables and meetings with young people organized by the Office of the Commissioner for Human Rights. This year alone, we held 5 roundtables in different cities of Tajikistan, and we discussed domestic violence and divorces and other problems in cooperation with other civil society institutions. We hold events for young scientists and so on. This year, the Office of the Human Rights Commissioner and a number of other government bodies and the Defense Ministry held workshops to prevent terrorism and extremism among young people, and discussed the key rights of people serving in the army. I would also like to say that students train at the Office of the Human Rights Commissioner every year, and they participate in workshops and other events. We also go to orphanages and schools. Another thing we do is educating our people about their legal rights, including young people. And we've successfully implemented the education program for years 2013-2020. It's an international program. And every 5 years, we adjust it and amend it in accordance with the new developments. And the program for years 2020-2024 includes several articles on mass media and young people. The Office for Human Rights Commissioner, in cooperation with other government agencies, drafted a new program that's in accordance with Stage 4 of the International Educational Human Rights Program. It's dedicated to equality, promoting a respect and peaceful and tolerant society. The program strengthens our education system and raises awareness about human rights in Tajikistan. It involves students of all ages, from primary school to college students, and also public officials, the military, and so on. In conclusion, I'd like to propose several things. First of all, there are no documents, as far as I know, adopted within the CIS on youth policies and the rights of young people. And I believe that this is to our detriment in terms of human rights protection, and we should work on it. Secondly, I would like to propose creating an educational program for CIS citizens, and then the UN resolution from October 4, 2019 on the stage 4 of education should also be our guiding light in our future activities.
Thank you very much, Mr. Babazada. This was very interesting, and it was an interesting report on the program that helps people be aware of their legal rights and how you implement this UN program in Tajikistan. And I think that will find its place in our resolution. And now I invite my colleague from Kazakhstan, Elvira Azimova. And Gulnara Zhamagarcheva will be next. Dear colleagues, dear participants of the Eurasian Ombudsmen Alliance, greetings to all of you. Thank you, Ms. Moskalkova, for this initiative to propose this agenda, because human rights, of course, include the rights of people, the people who already know what they will be doing in this life, but also forming the future for our young generation, which will govern our countries tomorrow. And we talk about strengthening the social status of human beings. And I think it's very important for us to remember that young people are the most responsive part of our society, and they think that it's very important. It's a very important part of our constitution that the rights of some citizens should not violate the rights of other citizens. This sense of justice is just something that they feel very deeply, and they understand the global and domestic trends, and they're very sensitive to them. So the events that you initiate, meeting with young people and also our Uzbek colleagues, and so I'd like to thank you for inviting me. I've been participating in these forums for 2 years, and this is a great project. And the fact that you meet with young people and you talk to them, and we also hold such meetings, that emphasizes the fact that they see themselves as important, and they see that they can express their opinions in different areas, not just as part of civil society or civil initiatives, but also in the area of human rights, which is very important because we can contribute here as well and form this patriotic image of a citizen of our nation, of our country. So in the history of Kazakhstan, we've been independent for over 30 years. And of course, we've also arrived at this point with certain experience, a certain baggage. And we already have some results. We've seen some results. And we can say that the trends that we see in Kazakhstan, they're positive, and we see them as positive because after the election campaign, we now have young MPs in our parliament, and they represent the most active group in the society, in our society, and they participate in the legislation, creating the legislation in our country, in all that parliamentary work. And of course, we welcome such change, such shifts, such trends in our parliament, and we want to see more of that happening in the future. Also, at the parliament, we have a club of young scientists, and the senators, from time to time, they meet with young scientists, young researchers. These are really active young people who are represented as there's some young professors at university, and the initiative that we just heard from Mr. Sapronov about young people being represented in this community, this research community as well. It is very important. We see it as a very important program for us in Kazakhstan. And of course, in just like in all of your countries, we implement measures to support young people because we understand that is the most important strategic resource. And the young generation is 20.4% of the population. And most of them, of course, are people living in big cities. 56.4% live in big cities, and 43.6% live in the country, in rural areas. And of course, we need to keep that in mind when we propose new initiatives, because there are certain differences between urban and rural areas, and we have to move forward with that understanding and make sure that these initiatives can be promoted flexibly in different settings, equally in the urban and rural areas. There shouldn't be much discrepancies. There should be equal opportunities and equal access to guarantees and opportunities that we have for young people and that are guaranteed by our strategic programs. And when we have about the percentage of youth representation in Kazakhstan, we have two age groups who unfortunately leave our country, immigrate, and because of course that is also happening. Some leave the country to study, others are just looking for better social programs or better employment, just better life standards. And these are mostly people from 14, 15-year-olds and 26, 28-year-olds. So just like you talked about having an employment database, jobs database for young people, we should keep that in mind as well. As for social life for young people, unfortunately, lately we've seen growth of HIV cases, mental health issues among young people, and also there are more cancer patients among young people. Technology has a negative side, downside to it as well, and we have to understand it. So when international experts talk about protecting youth rights, especially the ones who have mental health issues or other disabilities, I think that this issue is very important. And human rights commissioners should support programs for these categories of young people, because when one thing is when the court decides that this person cannot make decisions for themselves, that's one thing. When the court decides that this person's abilities are limited and there are certain limitations to what they can do, that's another issue. And it turns out that people with disabilities are very limited in what they can do, where they can be employed. That's why we have a new law on social entrepreneurship, and that's just a great business initiative. And I think that that's just another key area where human rights commissioners can work. They can and should support social entrepreneurs because they can help us reach the goals that we set when we talk about protecting social and economic rights of young people and people in general. Let me give you one example. In our legislation, we have this stipulation: orphans have to get housing, government provided housing, and they have this right, this priority right to get subsidized housing. So 20%, that's the level that we should achieve in our country. But unfortunately, our annual analysis shows that over 23,000 orphans, unfortunately, they don't get this social housing. Their problems are not solved. So 57% or 55% of these children, they already have housing, but when they end up in orphanages, but they do have some housing, that's 55%, but 45% do not have any place to live, and only half of them get the support from the government. And so they either get some subsidized housing, or they just get apartments from the government. So when we talked about active young people, we should not forget about those who are more vulnerable, but they still need to have equal opportunities and equal access so that they can realize their potential and different talents, because this is how a healthy generation should develop. This is how healthy societies operate and function. Of course, we should also talk about young scientists. Been looking at what's been happening recently because of the pandemic. Distance learning had some negative aspects to it, and in some respect it hurt the quality of education. But at the same time, a lot of distance learning programs were launched because of this situation. So we can participate in these new trends, and we can influence these programs and make sure that human rights are protected as these programs are being implemented. Because in some situations, some programs are not controlled by the government. They are allowed to roam free on the internet, and not all of these programs, not all of this knowledge is positive. Why is cyberbullying such a challenge in our country, or spreading negative information that hurts the personal development? Why are we allowing all this to happen? So we need to pay attention to that as well, and that is part of our job. Also, inclusive education. We've adopted certain changes in Kazakhstan to include different people with different abilities in the educational programs. But what I see among the people and in our society, people often say that inclusion should also be about children with disabilities. But even though we have this in our legislation, but people are ignoring the fact that children in juvenile detention centers or children who are at-risk children, they should also be included. Our law defines youth as people from age 14 to age 29. So these young people, if they are juvenile detention centers, we don't have a lot of them, but we still have children like that, and they should also be included, and all the inclusive programs have to cover them as well. We need to protect their rights. Any young people who live at different facilities, care facilities, or some other limited access institutions, we need to remember about them as well, and they should have access to education, and it has to be equal access. They should have the same opportunities as regular kids. So we also need to pay attention to the social and economic situation of our young people. As my colleague said, finding your professional development opportunities is still a challenge. In Kazakhstan, only 40% of young people, over 40%, work. They're not employed in their field of knowledge or expertise, and that is sad because it's a wasted potential, because professors and school teachers, they use their resources so they can train young professionals, and children at orphanages and juvenile detention centers, there are huge problems with their professional training. So some of these 40%, some people in this 40%, that was their choice. They wanted to work in a different field, not where they got their education. But there are also those who don't have a choice, and they were just forced to work in some other field despite their actual training. So a recent parliamentary election took place, and now if we talk about young people as being under 35, we have 7 MPs in that age group. And during the 2021 election, we've also had more local MPs compared to 2016 election, which is, of course, a positive trend, because we can see that young people are more interested in politics and they want to participate in these processes. But still, in Kazakhstan, young people are underrepresented in local governments, and this number is actually going down it went down by 11% from 2015 to 2020. And it's not just in central government agencies, but also in local governments. There are fewer young people now. So Kazakhstan's legislation provides for young people for their participation in government, and we of course we welcome those initiatives, and we think that that will help us raise the number of young people in government. And another issue that of course I have to talk about is crime among young people. You know about what happened in Afghanistan and how that poses a risk of drug trafficking. It's a big problem, and I think we should also help solve it, because our legislation, our criminal code is very strict, and we have to understand that using synthetic drugs is a big problem, and that affects the future of children. So my proposal, my suggestion is that we at this platform work on improving legislation in this area and taking into account young people, because unfortunately oftentimes young people do not even realize what they're doing when they start using these drugs. They have no idea what's going to happen in the future and how it's going to affect them. And we see that happening in schools, in secondary schools. So this is something that we should have a joint stance on, and we have to decide how these policies should develop in the future. We need to educate our young people. I am amazed at educational programs that our Russian and Uzbek colleagues are implementing, also our colleagues in Armenia. And of course, it is very important to make sure that we continue to do this so that our young people have equal access to all opportunities. And of course, the government has certain obligations, but families have certain obligations. But any young person is responsible for their own destiny as well, because they have so many opportunities to be socially active and to grow and to have a great future. But we are responsible for our contribution. We need to make sure that everybody has equal opportunities.
Thank you very much, Ms. Azimova. You raised a crucial issue, a fundamental one for us, I would say. How to create equal opportunities when the society is so diverse, when there's a great gap between well-off families, middle class, and those who are living in poverty. Unfortunately, such families do exist. So this is problem number one. Young people should be able to have equal opportunities to have a great future and fulfill their potential. You also raised the issue of protecting the rights of young people who are currently in juvenile detention centers or in other facilities. We are working on probation law. It's a meant to integrate past detainees into society, back into society. And when young people end up in juvenile detention centers and then turn 18 there, they are transferred to full-time jails, and that could be a shakeup. We need to provide them with the necessary healthcare and so on. Another thing is providing opportunities to young people living in rural areas, because there are some differences there from urban areas, and we have a special government body, a union, that protects the rights of young people in rural areas. As for young people who somehow started taking drugs and want to quit this habit, but unfortunately don't have this opportunity because we have very few state medical centers, rehabilitation centers that would offer free treatment to former drug users. And you raised the issue of synthetic drug use. I believe that these issues should be reflected in our final resolution so that we record our joint stance on how government policy should address these issues. Dear colleagues, please welcome Deputy Human Rights Commissioner for Kyrgyzstan. Please, I would like to give the floor to Gulnara Jamgirchiyeva. Yes, we can hear you. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, participants and members of the Eurasian Ombudsmen Alliance. I would like to greet you on behalf of our Human Rights Commissioner's Office. And I would like to start by expressing my gratitude to Ms. Moskalkova and the Office of Human Rights Commissioner in the Russian Federation for organizing this meeting and for raising key issues and key challenges that we all face. One of those issues is the COVID-19 pandemic that we're all trying to tackle, and we're trying to devise ways to do so. And because of the pandemic, in Kyrgyzstan, we've introduced distant learning for students. Students and teachers had to conduct classes online, and they weren't present for classes in person. And in this light, a lot of things have changed, from expenses to the ways and approaches to education. So we've had applications from students asking us to protect their constitutional rights in the light of the pandemic. They asked us to lower the price of different college programs. And we've worked on it, and in accordance with our legislation concerning education services, the prices should not be higher than the actual price of the service. And it should be in line with the actual price of the service. And the actual price is determined by the price list for education prices. It was adopted in May 2009. However, there is also an article that protects consumers' rights. And this article states that the consumer should only pay for the goods and services that they got. So in accordance with our legislation, you could pay for goods and services by paying in advance. And according to the aforementioned laws, the government and the universities should recalculate the price of education for the time of distant learning. And students should only pay for the actual price of their classes, and thus constitutional rights of students would be protected. However, the universities should keep their education standards as high as they used to and as high as is stipulated in the contracts. In this slide, so that universities could fulfill their contract obligations, we launched an inspection to see how distant learning education services align with in-person services. And we conducted legal analysis on fulfilling the obligations the universities undertook, as well as provide later dates for payments. We were met with understanding from the relevant government agencies. A number of roundtables were held in close cooperation with the staff of the Human Rights Commissioner's Office and officials, as well as university management representatives. I believe that to this day, it's one of the best practices that anyone came up with, and that's why I wanted to share that with you. We have a hotline, 115, and we got so many calls from students complaining they couldn't pay for their education, that they are now learning distantly, and so the services they're getting are not up to par. And we've done a lot of work. We've organized several roundtables, and heads of schools took part in that, representatives from Ministry of Education. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much, Ms. Zhamgarchieva. You've told us very important things about raising legal awareness and the issues related to the cost of education. It's a challenge we all face.
We raise this issue in our reports. We contact our governments to discuss this issue. By we, I mean Eurasian Ombudsman Alliance members. We ask to provide student grants and scholarships. And we ask for the prices to be duly regulated. And we also know that if a university loses its license, it's the students who are going to be affected. And we know of such cases. Dear colleagues, I would like to give the floor to the Human Rights Commissioner of Armenia, Mr. Toroyan.
Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, I'm very happy to see all of you here, and I think it is a big honor to all of us. This is already the 6th summit of our alliance, which I think is very important in and of itself. And I would also like to congratulate all of us, especially the members of the Eurasian Alliance, with the fact that this is already a formed platform and it is a live organism, because we always focus on issues that are often overlooked. They are not always they don't always get enough attention, but there are a lot of problems in those areas. And I think that this platform is becoming an institutional foundation. I'm talking about the fact that it's not our bilateral relations that help the development of this organization, but it looks like the organization is fostering the development of bilateral relations. So it's vice versa now. And there have been examples from my own practice of communicating with the head commissioner for the human rights of the Russian Federation, and also regional commissioners, as well as my colleagues from other countries. And I would like to point out that it is very important that we can discuss all kinds of issues in this context, in this format. And to me, it was interesting that to hear some colleagues talk about the right to history and legacy, which I think is very important, because of course, and it just shows how our alliance focuses on the most important issues. Now I would like to tell you about youth rights in Armenia. First of all, in the Armenian constitution, it is stipulated that one of the most important goals in state policies is to stimulate the participation of young people on political, cultural, and economic life of our nation. And of course, there are some important articles about the rights of children, and we have to focus on them, of course. I would like to talk about 2 issues. First of all, Ms. Moskalkova, you were absolutely right when you said that protecting the rights of young people and children in the digital sphere is of utmost importance. The internet and the digital world, of course, now gives us new opportunities to develop and to express ourselves. But at the same time, this new digital reality is also posing certain threats and challenges to our young people and children. We had an incident recently when young boy, who's 17, I think, he committed suicide because of a computer game. So he was influenced by a computer game and committed suicide. And nobody knew about that. Nobody knew about his that part of his life. They didn't know about it at the school. His parents didn't know about that. It's only when we studied his life professionally, we realized and found out that there is a sad statistic, and that has to be studied. Often, because of the everything is digital, teachers and parents often don't know about the problems of young people, and not just when they're school children, but when they become university students, they still face the same problems. So it's important that we protect our young people from these dangerous influences. So Kaspersky Laboratory is helping us to launch a new program, and together we are working on a guide for parents, for young people, a guide on how to use the internet. And there's a special section for parents where we advise them on how they can protect their children as they interact with the internet. About a week ago, we held a special event for over 100 teachers, and we selected certain teachers to discuss these issues. Secondly, what's also very important is the rights of young people with disabilities, especially the ones that live in special facilities, not necessarily correctional facilities, but orphanages and other facilities for children. We have this problem. Specialized orphanages, unfortunately, when children become adults, when they reach 18 years old, they don't have any skills. And after they become adults, they stay at these facilities because they can't really live on their own. And it's a big problem for everyone. They can't live independently. So they are helpless, and they are isolated from society. And secondly, of course, they propagate these stereotypes that also create problems. So we launched a major campaign, and as part of this program, we teach important life skills to these young people living at different specialized facilities. Unfortunately, these people are ridiculed, and also others help them because of pity. They take pity on them, and that shouldn't be the case. They need to learn. They need to learn how to be independent. Somebody needs to teach them. So that is one of the things that we've been focusing on, giving educating these children, making sure that they have some professional skills. Like, for example, we have some Down syndrome children, young people, who can work and make money and support themselves, and they don't have to live in orphanages and specialized facilities. They can rent their own apartments and live independently. And also, third issue that I see as very important, Ms. Moskalkova, thank you for inviting representatives of parliaments, and I would like to talk to them directly and ask them, what we do every day needs to matter. And in order for our work to matter, it needs to find its way into the legal framework, because we work with separate cases, but we need legislation. We need our experience, our practice to be translated into certain laws. So when you get certain recommendations from the Commissioner for Human Rights. What she says, it matters on the international level. So, for example, her initiative of giving certain powers, certain legal powers to commissioners when they interact with courts, and so they can appeal court decisions. Thank you very much. And our time is limited, so I would like to stop there. So thank you for proposing this agenda that includes so many important issues. And I thank you, all my colleagues, and for your work that you've been doing. Thank you. Thank you very much. You always talk about the importance of our work, of our organization, our secretariat, and my office. Yes, we put a lot of effort into organizing this event. In your address, you emphasize some important things, talking about the protection of the rights of the young people in the digital sphere, in the digital world. We've had complaints from parents about dangerous sites, hazardous sites, where young children are led to dangerous activities like suicide or drugs or violence or just the glorification of evil. And we asked the government to block these websites, these dangerous websites that threatened our young people. This is very interesting experience that you've shared, and about your joint project with the Kaspersky Laboratory in developing a special guide on how to interact with the internet, a guide for parents and young people, and so that they can understand how the internet works, how the social media work and function. I think the members of the Eurasian Ombudsmen Alliance would be really interested in getting familiar with this practice. And now, thank you again, my dear colleagues. Our next guest is our colleague from Serbia, Zoran Pašalić. Thank you very much.
Isključu kameru. Dobar dan, dragi prijatelji. Pozdravljam vas iz Srbije i svim prijateljima i kolegama iz Eurasianske alijanse. Želim puno sreće, uspeha u radu i veliki, veliki pozdrav moje dragoj koleginici Tatiani Moskalkovoj i zaista želim da joj se zahvalim na ovako dobro organizovanom mitingu, odnosno konferenciji, pogotovo sa temom koju je delegirala, a to su zaštita dece i zaštita prava deteta.
Good day to you, my dear friends and colleagues. I would like to greet all of you from the Eurasian Alliance and wish you all the luck and success in today's work. I would especially like to thank Mrs. Tatiana Moskalkova for her efforts in organizing this gathering and for selecting this especially significant topic concerning the child rights.
Ne znam koliko je poznato, u instituciji zaštitnika građana ceo jedan sektor se bavi pravima deteta i to je sektor na koji smo mi naročito ponosni. Što je najvažnije, u novom zakonu predviđene su još veća ovlašćenja u ovom sektoru.
I don't know how much most of you are familiar with this, but a protector of citizens of the Republic of Serbia has a separate sector that deals with the rights of the child. According to the new law on the protector of citizens, which is currently being considered by the parliament, special attention and even more power is given to the protector of citizens in the area of the promotion and protection and advancement of child rights.
U novom zakonu koji se upravo nalazi u parlamentarnoj raspravi predviđene su neke novine koje se tiču zaštite dečijih prava, a to je, kao što sam rekao, povećanje kapaciteta sektora koji se bavi pravima deteta i zaštitom prava deteta, ali ono što je izuzetno značajna novina, to je da deca sa navršenom 10. godinom mogu lično da predaju pritužbe instituciji Zaštitnika građana.
The novelties the novelties foreseen by the new law on the protector of citizens, which is, as I said, currently in the parliamentary discussions, foresee the new capacities and more specifically, these changes concern the increased capacities of the sector for the protection of the child rights, but also the fact that children who are above 10 years of age can individually submit a complaint to the protector of citizens.
Pre 11 godina, rukovodeći se jednim od osnovnih principa konvencije o pravima deteta, principa participacije dece, Zaštitnik građana je osnovao panel mladih savjetnika Zaštitnika građana i održao prvi sastanak sa 30 dečaka i devojčica iz cele Srbije.
11 years ago, guided by one of the fundamental principles of the Convention of the Child of the Rights, the principle of child participation in decision-making process, the Protector of Citizens established Youth Advisory Panel of the Protector of Citizens and held the very first meeting consisting of 30 boys and girls from all over Serbia.
U tom broju od 30 dece zastupljene su podjednako i devojčice i dečaci iz osnovnih i srednjih škola, iz svih krajeva Srbije i iz svih osetljivih grupa.
This advisory youth panel consisting of 30 young people girls and boys were equally represented, as well as from elementary and high schools from all over Serbia, as well as children from special vulnerable groups like children with disabilities.
Članovi panela su sproveli istraživanja o zaštiti dece i učenika od nasilja u školama i o stavovima dece i mladih prema fizičkom kažnjavanju, a takođe su uputili Skupštini, vladi, ministarstvima i školama i drugim institucijama preporuke za poboljšavanje položaja dece i bolju zaštitu njihovih prava.
The Youth Advisory Panel members have conducted a survey on the protection of child and students from violence in schools. And the attitudes of children and youth towards the corporal punishment, bodily punishment. They also included some recommendations to the parliament, the government, and other bodies on how to improve the position of children and better protect their rights. Sorry.
Ovom organizacijom takozvanog panela mladih, Zaštitnik građana je hteo da ukaže svim institucijama u Republici Srbiji da prilikom donošenja odluka o pravima deteta i zaštiti prava deteta uvek moraju da čuju i mišljenje dece koja će najjednostavnije da objasne koje su njihove potrebe, koji su njihovi problemi i mišljenje kako te probleme rešiti.
By establishing this panel, the Protector of Citizens wanted to draw attention of other bodies in the Republic of Serbia that it is necessary to include the voice of children and youth in the decision-making process, and that no decision should be made without involving them and hearing their voices.
Poruke panelista, odnosno ovih mladih ljudi koji su u svakodnevnom kontaktu sa svojim vršnjacima po ovim pitanjima, je prvenstveno bila da se deca u medijima više budu zastupljena u kulturnim sadržajima, da se pokazuju njihovi uspesi u kulturnom i stvaralačkom radu, a da se zaista mediji, bez obzira što to izaziva senzaciju i verovatno veću čitanost ili veću gledanost medija, ne bave skandalima nasilja nad decom, narkomanijom i svim oblicima koji, mogu da kažem, tangiraju ove mlade ljude.
The messages of the youth panelists concerning their rights could be summarized in the fact that they requested to have more presence of child issues in media in terms of cultural programs, also to promote their successes throughout media, and that media, disregarding the fact that the sensationalism and should be avoided, and that their rights should be protected, and to avoid topics that harm the rights of the children.
U cilju upoznavanja članova panela i sa životom dece koja žive i rade na ulici, sprovedena je akcija Deca deci i Deca za decu, u okviru koje su održane različite tematske radionice, čiji je rezultat film o načinu na koji su mladi panelisti u svojem učešću u radu Zaštitnika građana doprineli poboljšanju položaja dece iz osetljivih grupa.
In order to familiarize the members of the panel with the life of the children who live on the streets and work on the streets, there was a project, actually an action called Children to Children and Children for Children, conducted by the Protector of Citizens. This included various thematic workshops, which resulted in a film about the way in which young panelists, through their participation in the work of the Protector of Citizens, contributed to the improvement of the position of children from vulnerable groups.
Zaštitnik građana upućuje nadležnim organima preporuke i mišljenja ukoliko u konkretnom slučaju utvrdi da su nadležni organi nepravilno ili nezakonito postupali ili radi unapređenje njihovog rada.
The Protector of Citizens issues recommendations and opinions to the competent public authorities if in a specific case this institution finds that these authorities have acted irregularly or illegally in order to improve their work.
Takođe, Zaštitnik građana ima ovlašćenja po Zakonu o Zaštitniku građana i Ustavu Republike Srbije da vladi, odnosno Skupštini, podnese inicijativu za izmenu i dopunu zakona i drugih propisa i opštih akata ako smatra da do povrede prava dolazi zbog nedostatka u propisima, kao i da inicira donošenje novih propisa kada smatra da je to od značaja za ostvarenje i zaštitu prava dece i mladih.
In addition to this, the Protector of Citizens is mandated to submit to the government or the parliament an initiative to amend laws or other regulations and general acts if he considers that a violation occurs due to the shortcomings in the regulations. As well, he has the right to initiate the adoption of new laws and regulations when he considers it is important for the exercise and protection of the rights of the child.
Poštovana koleginice Moskalkova, još jedanput hvala i hvala svim dragim kolegama i prijateljima iz Eurasijske alijanse i puno pozdrava iz Srbije.
My dear colleague Moskalkova, as well as all the other friends and colleagues from Eurasian Alliance, once again, thank you very much for your contribution and to this discussion, and warm greetings from Belgrade.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pashalic, for everything you said and for your proposals. I'd like to underline that our Serbian colleague managed to have a well-formulated position on bullying from older students or teachers and cases of violence. It's very important to have prevention mechanisms in place for bullying for students, college students or high school students. And you raised an important issue about promoting the various successes and achievements by young people. And we have a special event when a regional human rights commissioner or other government bodies put forward a candidate who made progress and achieved something in protecting young people's rights. And it would be nice for the Eurasian Ombudsman Alliance to have its own award that we could honor legal assistance by someone who helps people in difficult circumstances. And now I would like to give the floor to the Commissioner of the National Human Rights Commission of Mongolia, Ms. Sunjit Dugar. Please.
Dear colleagues, I'll greet you on behalf of Mongolian National Human Rights Commission, and especially thank you, Professor Moskalkova and organizing team. So, as you see, the Mongolian population is small, 3,400,000 population, and of which is 31% are youth between 18 and 34 age. So it also constitutes almost 50% of workforce, and you see this Mongolian population is very young aged. Many of Mongolia's laws and policies attempt to protect and better the lives of Mongolian youth, and it starts with the Constitution of Mongolia and labor law, we can name it, and also the recently new adopted law on promotion of youth development, and also more than 30 decisions, resolutions, detailed programs and regulations have been issued aimed at youth and regulating youth activities. And I will skip these international instruments. It's all familiar to you. So recently in 2017, we adopted new law on promotion of youth development. And many years was discussed about this law and the needs and demands on youth and necessity of these laws. And finally, we had Mongolian parliament passed this law in 2017, and it's now effective from 2018. So the purpose of this law is to establish the legal basis for the state to support youth development and to regulate relations regarding rights and responsibilities of youth to participate in social development. And this law stipulated 3 principles. So first one is respect for national unity and justice, non-discrimination. Second one is ensure the participation of youth, civil society organizations in the formulation, implementation, and monitoring of government policies and decisions on youth development. And third one is increase the value of young people and respect their views. And this law regulated 5 areas which will state promotes for youth: and self-development, education, culture, arts, sports and science, health issues, employment issues, safe environment, and to live and develop. Yeah, according to law, we established till now 436 local youth councils, and it was established at the province level, at the district level, and also at the agency level, at the ministry level, and also at the business enterprises. And we have 3 volunteer councils. And overall, generally, we have now 436 councils, youth councils. And we have some governance bodies which is in charge of youth issues, and Ministry of Labor and Social Protection is in charge of these youth issues, and under the ministry works the Authority for Family, Child and Youth Development. This authority was a national agency for children before this law on promoting youth. And we have this public entity, Mongolian Youth Federation, and also National Council for the Youth Development, and recently established youth development centers and youth councils. Yeah, if we talk about the challenges of Mongolian youth, yeah, first issue is the political participation of youth, and you see these charts, it increases from election to election. And for that, for last election, 2020, for the parliamentarian election, the youth voting rate were very high because of campaign, because of especially educating program. And it's increasing now. By the employment, yeah, as I mentioned, 50% of the working force are young aged people. So if we see the unemployed young people, it's about 500,000 people. So it's why is this unemployed rate is so high? It's related to the international migration and mobility, and also some of the young people working as unpaid family workers, and some of them are self-employed, and some of them are might be part-time workers. So overall, if we see the statistics, we have a very high rate of unemployed young age people. By the education, the most challenging issue is the gap between male and female students. By the high education, mostly attended most of students of the high education institute are female. So from the start, male and female students are equal, and if it's going to the high education, the female student persons are high and male students are lower. So we should consider that. And because of limited time, I should skip some presentations. So what is the challenges of the Mongolian youth? That's the first challenge, as I mentioned, it's the unemployment, high rate of unemployment, and the government should take some actions and provide this young youth employment issues. And second one is young people be more involved with political decisions, not only in the election process, but also in the everyday life, administrative decision-making level. It should be more involved. And we should encourage youth participation relating to the CSO, NGO issues, because we have a lot of NGOs, but the youth NGOs are very few. And Mongolian Human Rights Commission are now trying to encourage and to provide and to support, establish new youth NGOs and their sustainable work. And third issue is this investment, the financial issues is always the problem in every country, I think. That's why we need some support, provide some special projects for the youth. And another issue is the healthcare and education service. In terms to the healthcare, in Mongolia, we have some 10-year gap between male and female life expectancy. That's why we should consider this healthcare issues early on, possible early from the youth age. So finally, in Mongolian Human Rights Commission, in frame of our legislation, we are now considering two activities on the youth providing, and first one is to teach more practical legal cases useful for everyday life, and second one is we started one small project to teach this, to cooperate young journalists, and we want to make some foundations to better knowledge about human rights and about the constitutional mechanisms and about the governmental institution. If the young journalists, if they are more, if they have more knowledge, they can affect to them society positively. So thank you all.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sunjid. You've also raised important issues. As for election rights, the right to vote and to be elected, and how the young people see this, well, we invited foreign ombudsmen as observers to our parliamentary elections that took place in September. And Human Rights Commissioner from Uzbekistan also was one of the observers at our elections. And you talked about giving young people an impetus so that they participate in elections. And you are probably the only speaker today to talk about access to doing sports, because for some sports you need special equipment, and that could be pricey for some families especially. And I'd like to give the floor to Akmal Saidov, head of the National Human Rights Center of Uzbekistan, as a PhD in law, professor. But to start with, I'd like to congratulate you Mr. Saidov and all the people of Uzbekistan on a successfully held presidential election. And I know that you worked on protecting people's election rights, and you looked into best practices in that regard. Our human rights commissioners were invited as observers, and I believe that this has been a very good experience that we could recreate later within the Eurasian Ombudsman Alliance. Thank you, Ms. Moskalkova. And dear participants, lawmakers, ombudsmen, academics, and civil institutions representatives, I would like to thank you, Ms. Moskalkova, for organizing this meeting and for inviting me to take part in it, and also for your well wishes on our elections in Uzbekistan. It's true that we've invited 1,100 observers from abroad, from different international organizations, and there were a number of regional human rights commissioners from Russia, specifically Sverdlovsk region. And it wasn't just observing the election. The Russian Commissioner for Human Rights participated in a meeting at the observation center. And we're very interested to hear about the experience of regional human rights commissioners. And it was a very interesting event. We would also like to thank every participant of the 12 August conference in Tashkent. That was Youth Day, and we adopted a declaration. And based on our recommendations, the UN Human Rights Council adopted a resolution to address the rights of young people during the COVID-19 pandemic. So I'd like to congratulate all of us. It was a great resolution, and all the 47 members of the council supported it. So I think this is a good result we demonstrated. So we have over 2 billion young people in the world today. Different countries apply different criteria as to what is considered young people. We believe that it's people from 18 to 25. In Russia, it's from 14 to 35. I'd like to talk about Uzbekistan's experience. Our population is 35 million people, and 60% of that is young people. So this is our demographic resource. It's great, but it's also related to some challenges. And when it comes to protecting the rights of young people in Uzbekistan, we have 5 priorities. So first is legal protection. And you could even say we have a youth legal framework. We adopted 3 laws, and there have been a number of presidential orders related to social, economic, cultural, humanitarian rights of people. So this is the legal protection framework. Then we created special institutions for human rights protection. We have a commission operating within our parliament, and there's a youth agency, and then we have youth chambers of young legislators, also operational. And there are also specialized government institutions meant to protect their rights. The third priority is education. I would say that we are creating a system of continuously educating people on human rights when it comes to people. We have special textbooks on women's rights, children's rights, and so on. So it's very important to have this foundation. Our fourth priority is monitoring. What's the importance of monitoring? Well, there are two sides to this story. First of all, there's parliamentary monitoring mechanisms, and then social monitoring when you involve civil institutions, NGOs, and we have the Youth Union and other NGOs. And they work on protecting the rights of young people, including disabled young people. And I'm not going to go into details in terms of international monitoring. So our fifth priority is the international legal framework and international cooperation on protecting the rights of young people. And today's event is a good example of such international cooperation. Uzbekistan wants to adopt the UN Convention on the Youth Rights, and we have a draft, and there's a friendship group formed within the UN to promote this convention. And over the last 2 years, we've held major forums in Samarkand on youth protection rights. In 2020, we adopted a declaration, Youth 2020, Sustainable Development, Solidarity, and Youth Rights. And this year, we adopted a declaration in Tashkent on involving young people on a global level. So these are our successes. I would like to thank Ms. Azimova for her active participation in our international events dedicated to the rights of young people. So I have a suggestion as for the resolution of our meeting today. So we are citing a number of legal documents here, and I'd like to add the UN resolution on COVID-19 and youth rights. So this is a recent resolution that was adopted not only by the 47 Human Rights Council members, but other states as well. And we were co-sponsors of this resolution, and that would serve as another good example of our cooperation. So a couple of specific proposals. First of all, I support your suggestion, Ms. Moskalkova. You proposed to have a special day on human rights. The textbook and guidelines, the legal mechanisms. So this is all very good and rational. You mentioned the goals of sustainable development. In order to implement that, I propose to have youth envoys for sustainable development goals. They would every year compile reports on progress for sustainable development goals, especially among young people. And Secondly, we'd like to propose that the states help create chambers of young lawmakers and create an international association of for chambers of young lawmakers. Thirdly, it's crucial to develop strategies for youth policy, and they do exist in a number of countries. We adopted our old strategy to 2025. And I think we need to create a system so it's not haphazard anymore. And I think that we should urge young people to participate in whatever decisions are being made on their behalf. And another proposal is to create special commissions on the World Program for Human Rights Education, the UN program. And how should we do that? We should create information centers or centers for human rights or the rights of young people. And so this would be a good part of a workshop on human rights. We also propose to have a special rapporteur on human rights of young people. Uzbekistan proposed to create a youth council for Central Asia countries. And I would like to invite everyone to participate in creating these new bodies. And in conclusion, I would like to quote Goethe, who said that even though the world keeps moving forward, young people always have to start from the very beginning. And another quote is that youth is a flaw that disappears very quickly. So we have to do something before it does. Thank you.
Thank you for your excellent address. Thank you so much. You were the example, you set an example for all of us when we made our proposals to the president to institute a human rights educational center in Russia at the Kutafin University. And together we worked on this, and we've published a book together. And in this book, we compare the human rights policies in Uzbekistan and Russia. And I think that was a very good example of our cooperation. In your address, you pointed out that we need to build a foundation, a legislative foundation to protect human rights. And it is now, as the speaker, you can implement your theoretical knowledge in your legislative practice. And I think your proposal on developing institutional systems was very valuable. And you mentioned a number of agencies and institutes that could realize the ideas that have been stipulated in declarations and international documents. And as a member of the Eurasian Alliance, Ombudsman Alliance, and as a Russian commissioner, I, of course, support the UN Convention on Youth Affairs, on such proposal, on such convention. And I will try to be part of the group that will promote this document. Thank you for your attention. You know that we already have the special building dedicated to human rights in Russia, and you are always welcome here, as well as all other members of the Eurasian Ombudsman Alliance. We can have our meetings, events here, or we can just talk. We get together. Thank you very much. And our next speaker is another representative of Uzbekistan, Firuza Ishmatova. Thank you very much, Ms. Ishmatova, for participating as an observer at the previous meeting. You were also an observer at our coordination council. You are a very active person, and I'm glad that we've been be able to work together. So, as an observer, would you share your ideas with us? Hello, dear colleagues. I hope you can hear me well. Yes, we can hear you. Dear participants, I would like to thank the organizers for extending the invitation and greet all the participants. Thank you, Ms. Moskalkova, for your initiative. And this is a very important process in all countries in the world and is also important for the future of Uzbekistan. So I would like to thank all my colleagues from the Russian Federation, especially the regional commissioner for Tatarstan, as well as Sverdlovsk region, for inviting us as observers in the election. And we will be happy to continue working together. And going back to our agenda, I would first of all like to emphasize the importance of today's meeting, because youth affairs are very serious and that's an important issue. Young people that's a special group, and it's a certain age group, and also they are defined by their status in society, and they play an important role in the development of every nation. As my colleague mentioned, in Uzbekistan, working with young people is one of the priorities for the government. And for the last 5 years, we've passed about 50 laws governing this area and protecting the rights of young people. The first one talks about and governs the relations between the state and young people. Youth policies are a system of measures that the government implements to create certain conditions for the development and realizing the potential of young people. About 60% of the country's population are young people. And of course, we are happy about this fact. We have our youth parliaments, and at the local government level, we have many young people, active people participating in local governments. In Uzbekistan, we also see that it's important to encourage entrepreneurship among young people. We making higher education available to young people is another important issue. We have about 17 universities now, and until 2017, only 9% of secondary school graduates became university students. Now this number grew to 25%. And as our master's programs have also expanded and now have more students. And I think that this trend will continue. In 2020, our president signed an order on reforming the youth policies, which confirms the fact that our state is in active dialogue with the young people. Also, we have a special youth affairs agency, which has been instituted to implement government policies in this respect. Gender equality is another big thing in Uzbekistan. We support women in all areas of life. We give them education, and which is one of our main goals. Over 3,000 women were able to enter universities and government subsidized programs. Also, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we call on all states, all countries to create equal opportunities for all young people so that they are not affected by this pandemic negatively. And it's important for Uzbekistan as well. 2021 is the year of supporting young people in their initiative in the social sphere, because that is one of our goals, national goals. And we need to support our future generations, and we have some practical proposals. So it would be beneficial to all of us to have some sort of newspaper of the Eurasian Ombudsman Alliance, and where we could discuss important issues and publish important materials and exchange our expertise. We should also hold online events that would help us implement international standards in our area of work, and paying special attention to more issues of moral issues and educated young people will ensure peaceful development of their countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Ashmatova. And I was so glad to hear that Kazakhstan finally adopted a law on human rights commissioner, and we have new mechanisms of cooperation, and I think it would be good to publish news about that, maybe online or even a printed edition. And we should take this proposal into consideration. You also mentioned organizing a series of events for Eurasian Ombudsman Alliance members to study the situation, human rights for young people. And today we're launching a master's program. It's International Protection of Human Rights, and it's a consortium of universities. They all participate in making it real, and you suggested we step it up and study international standards for protecting the rights of young people. It's a great proposal. Dear colleagues, I would like to give the floor to Chairman of the National Institute for Human Rights of Bahrain, Mr. Alderazi. We had a memorandum on cooperation today, and he was an invited expert, a guest expert. on our parliamentary elections and shared his expertise on election
Thank you very
rights.
much for
The
giving
floor
me
is
this
yours.
opportunity
Thank you.
to participate in this workshop. I'm very happy to hear from our colleagues what and every whoever participate and share their experience. And I would like to special thanks for Tatiana Moskalkova for giving us this opportunity to participate here and share our experience. In Bahrain, we have our institute, the National Institute of Human Rights, has been established in 2009. We have in Bahrain a lot of challenges, as other colleagues have. But every country will have their own challenges, a little bit different than the others. So, but some of them are really sharing similar problems with the youth and with the children, such as using the children in the elections and this type of problem also we are facing. Now, I will talk about also the challenges of the unworkers. I mean, the vacancies, difficulties to find for the youth. I will focus maybe on part of this, and part of the laws has been modified with the participation of the Institute of Human Rights with the Parliament. One of them is basically and other challenges that we are having, like maybe other countries they don't have, like for the women in Bahrain, they cannot have their children under the same nationalities in case if the father is not Bahrainis. So this type of particular problems we are facing here in Bahrain. Now, on the law of corrective justice, we work hardly together with the parliament and government, in particular the protection from ill treatment, and in some of the articles to considerably to have a direct impact on the human rights and fundamentals freedoms, especially for the children and for the youth. On the other side, we have in Bahrain one establishment called Tamkeen, and that Tamkeen is basically working on Tamkeen, the direct translation is enabling. So there is a program there for the youth who are not working, and that started from youth who just graduated from schools. There will be a program for training to work, and there the private sector will participate together with the government, finding the vacancies and establishing a training for such vacancies. And then later on, once they start working, then there will be a subsidy onto the workers. And that subsidy started from even 75% of the salary will be covered by the government for the first year. The second year will be 50% covered by the government, and the third year will be 25%. So such a gradual subsidy the we have established here in Bahrain to push the work for the youth. And similarly, programs happening for the engineers, doctors, and newly graduated lawyers. With that, I think this program has really pushed a lot into the unworkers to find work, because mostly the private sector will find it very useful to have a good chance for the new workers. Usually for the youth, main problem is the experience, and so with this program we are covering a good 3 years by the government. So this is where I started focusing on that, and thank you very much. Maybe we can speak a lot, but I think I'm at the end and everyone is tired already. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alderazi, for your remarks and for interesting proposals. It's definitely very good that you're taking part in our events and that you're willing to further participate in the work of the Eurasian Ombudsman Alliance. Dear colleagues, we discussed the main points on our agenda, and that's protecting the rights of young people. And I'd like to remind you that human rights commissioners from 9 countries participated in this, and we have 101 person online, 76 regional human rights commissioners from Russia. And there were 58 different proposals that the speakers made. We have a expert group from our office staff. They're here today now. And basically the management of our Office for Human Rights Commissioner. They're either here in person or they are in the conference online, and they make sure that all of your proposals are heard. They will make a summary and send them to the Eurasian Ombudsman Alliance members so that you can express your views on the final draft of the resolution. So now we should move on to the next point on our agenda, and that is adopting the resolution. I believe that the draft resolution should serve as a foundation, and it will be amended with all of your proposals taken into consideration, and then we could adopt the final draft. Are there any additional comments? Okay, if there are none, I believe we should, by November the 25th, present the summarized proposals. If you don't send anything in by that time, we will just use the way you formulated them here today. And I would like to ask our staff to put together the final draft of the final draft resolution of a 6th meeting of the Eurasian Ombudsman Alliance, and we should be adopting that by December the 20th. One last thing we should discuss is as follows. Many human rights commissioners said here today that it's impossible to promote anything, including the human rights protection agenda, without digital technologies. So 2 years ago, we created a website for our Eurasian Ombudsman Alliance, and we've been updating it all that time based on your recommendations. We've found software engineers and created a new version of our website. So we invited the developer, and we want to show you the better version of the website, and we'd like to hear your opinions on whether you like it, and maybe you have some proposals, some changes, so that our software engineers could create the final version. And I would also like to talk about the rules about how the information would be handled. Can you hear me very well? I mean, who can take the published information or not? Can you hear me now or not? Okay, you can. So I would like to give the floor to our software engineer. Please look at your screens. You will see the beta version of our new website. And Roman Torshin, the engineer, will comment.
Dear colleagues, I would like to thank Ms. Moskalkova to give me this opportunity to present the result of our work personally. I'll show you the presentation, and we'll show you the stages that we've already gone through and what we've already done, and also show you the potential, and also talk you about the future of this website. Do you all see the website? It would be helpful if you could enlarge it a little bit, make it bigger. Well, I see it on the full screen. I think it's like the letters are too small or something. Well, all right, okay, while I'll figure out the screen, let me share this history or our story. So we wanted to keep the style, but we wanted to put new content. We analyzed sites of the alliance countries and some international websites, and we analyzed the latest technology, and we try to apply all the best practices in this website. We have 3 modules here. You can change the color and intellectual search, and also the multi-language module. And let me explain what it is. We have 2 websites today. The first one is the test version. That's where we test all our ideas and proposals and some designer findings. And the second website is where the final versions are published. So we want you to navigate from the static site that we have right now, which is it's mostly photos and text. We want to move on to the dynamic model so that users can interact with the different elements of the site. And as you can see, we changed the colors, and we even studied some psychology behind color, and we want you to find the color that would be trustworthy. And I think this is these are the colors that basically communicate the essence of the organization, human rights work. We also looked at the latest trends when we created the bios. So we wanted more interactional form. And as you can see, on both sites, there are several versions about the bio section. So you can compare the three versions that we have. Again, there is dynamic animation. See how the picture becomes bigger, or other information, you can also make it bigger. Now, the search mechanism. Machine learning, artificial intelligence are a big thing right now, but not everybody knows how exactly that works. Well, we've used machine learning elements when we developed this site. So on the new site, well, first of all, you can search in different languages, not just in Russian. And also, when you are starting to type something in the search section, you will get results that are not just text, but also video and pictures. And you can also do the search from different websites. So when a user searches something on the ombudsman's site, they can actually find information from other sites as well. So it's like an information hub, and you can search on different websites. So why this multi-search engine is so important? We can see what people type in that search line, and we can adjust our site policy based on that analysis. We can see what people are interested in, and we can a little bit about the multilingual aspect. Why you may ask, why do you need that, since we have the Google Translator? Well, as you all know, Google and Yandex translators, they're mostly trained on everyday words. But if you are going to specify the field, like medical words or human rights terms, Google Translation will not be efficient. So we've employed artificial intelligence here as well. So there is automatic translation, but IE mechanisms teach our translator. And so the system is improving thanks to that aspect, and it will get better and better at recognizing languages. So since we're limited in time, let me speak a little bit about the future of our website. We talked about young people today, and so young people, they visualize everything. They don't want to read things anymore. They want visualized content, and that's what we should give them. So that's what we've been focusing on, and there's different infographics on our website. Second trend is multi-channels. Now, website users don't want to be users. They want to be co-creators of content. So we need to interact with our users. And so we should let users contribute as well. We can do like competitions, giveaways, and users can participate, and we will get a lot of content that will be actually interesting to our users. Also, if we're speaking about visualization, on the left there, you can see a little video. It was created by a 5-year-old kid. So they were practicing, these IT specialists were trying to create content, but the idea was to make a video about human rights. Can you just look at this? This is 3D animation done by a 5-year-old child. So that just shows how children can teach adults as well. When children can create interesting content, of course they will use the language that they understand. So I think this video about human rights made by children will be appropriate on this website, and it's going to be something that will attract young users. Also, another important thing, let's admit, young people don't watch TV anymore. They're all on social media. And for them, opinion leaders and influencers are different than what we think influencers are or opinion leaders. Let's talk about deepfake technology. When criminals use deepfake technology to commit a crime, but we can also use this deepfake technology for good. Like, look at this, for example. This is an opinion leader, Habib Nurmagomedov, in Russia. He's greeting you in English. Let me play the video for you. Habib, of course, did not participate in the creation of this video. We just used his picture. But this technology is very useful. Like, for example, David Beckham recorded an address about fighting the pandemic in 15 languages. And 13 million people watched that video. And the fund was able to raise an incredible amount of money because of that video. So I think this is a really interesting thing that we can do working with opinion leaders. Well, for example, Djokovic, basketball player. We can use him to promote healthy lifestyle. We can actually revive some people. For example, Nikola Tesla, who's a famous Serbian scientist. We talked about education, school education today. I think that a physics lesson from Nikola Tesla would just be a sensation in Serbia, and young people would love it. And in conclusion, a few words about what we have right now and what can be realized. Let me play the video for you, a video for you, so that you can all hear the sound. This technology is creating captions, subtitles automatically, and translation into multiple languages. So, as you can see from this video, we can do multilingual thing using just one service. And text, we can convert text into voice and voice into text and create several tracks for one video. important because we get more users on our website, not just Russians, but also people from other countries. Also, we save space. It's not 20 different videos, but it's one video that has different options for language and sound. And the most important issue that I'm going to raise right now is censorship. We've all been hearing things about political censorship in the last year. President of the United States was blocked for political reasons. So now everybody, so YouTube, everybody wants to have a video on YouTube and Vimeo. Of course, we want to have our own service that would be as popular and as efficient as YouTube. So we have something like that, but it is similar to YouTube, but it actually have more functionality. Like as you can see, you can switch. You can browse to the menu. This video is branded, as you can see on the left there. And you can also transfer to the main site from this video. So if we post these videos, then users can go to the national sites, websites from this video. We can also post and place different blocks that can make that can help users work with video. Unfortunately, we just don't have enough time to tell you about everything, all the technological solutions that we want to implement in our website. If you have any questions, you can ask them.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll show you the website now. So, could you see everything okay? Okay, so this is the translator tool. This is the interactive menu. Here's analytics. And here you can see how the image becomes bigger. We might change the picture, I hope so. And in the background, we have national flags. And of course, recent news. And this is the search engine. And let's try to see it in a different language, to see it translated. We have several languages here. It would be easier for the system to evolve if there's not too much content. So maybe eventually we'll have 108 languages all represented. Thank you very much, Roman. Dear colleagues, dear participants, in your email, through your email, you can all access this demo version, and you can look at it, show it to your experts, and maybe give us some feedback. And we'll give you the contacts of the person who is going to put that all together and give it to Roman. So you need to appoint someone who's responsible for your feedback, this website and the content. And for us, this is Mr. Tolmachov. You all know him very well. And I hope that we can reach a new level and be more recognized throughout the world. And dear colleagues, time flies. we've been at it for 3 hours, right? And we've discussed all the points on our agenda. So, does anyone have any proposals, additional comments, feedback? If you do, please raise your hand. I can see everyone. Okay, no one. So let me tell you, let me just say have a good week. And I'd like to offer my well wishes to Russian citizens on the upcoming Unity Day holiday. And we have these non-working days ahead to spend with our loved ones. Please take care and goodbye. Thank you, everyone. We'll